Justice and Constitutional Development Minister Thembi Simelane's appearance before Parliament to answer questions about a loan she had received from VBS. Some MPs have called for her to step down, saying that potential conflicts of interest may occur. However, how exactly, if at all, will Minister Simelane be in conflict of interest? And is the call for her to step down a justifiable one? Attorney at UJ Law and legal expert Elton Hart joins us now. Elton, good morning and thank you so much for your time.
Good morning and good morning to the viewers.
Firstly, Minister Thembi Simelane's reputation is under scrutiny amid the VBS scandal allegations. Firstly, did she exploit her mayoral authority when she received these funds?
If one looks at if you go draw a diagram, at that point when she received the loan, I think somewhere she was the mayor of Polokwane municipality. And at that stage, Polokwane municipality, I think it was around about 130 million rand that they sort of have invested or sort of have left with VBS. And then you have this company called Gundo. Gundo was receiving certain payments from VBS, and then Gundo paid money to her to actually, or gave her a loan for her to actually start the coffee shop. So if one looks at that chain, that how convenient is it that the mayor sits on top, monies get invested with the municipality then sends it to VBS, then one can sort of have say, but maybe there is a sort of a link. But obviously the courts doesn't work on speculation and those type of things. We need to show clearly that she, as a mayor, influenced the municipality to invest the money in VBS so that the money can be paid to various stakeholders that's sitting at the bottom that's responsible for the fall of the bank. And based on that, then one can say, okay, she had a direct influence on why the money was invested with VBS and not another financial institution. And then one can start drawing the evidence. But then you would also need people to say that in the system, who facilitated how the monies came from the municipality to VBS, to Gundo, to her, because I know Gundo was not really in the loan business, if one can put it that way, to say Elton and Masichawa will rock up there and they get a loan from Gundo. That was not Gundo's main business.
Follow the money. So are public office holders such as government ministers and municipality mayors even permitted to have business interests or engage in private business activities while in office?
No, I'm sure they are allowed. I mean, our president currently is our sitting president. He owns the Palapala farm and it's his business, but there's somebody else running the business. So I would not say it would be against our constitution to say that you stop a person from being involved in business because he holds a executive position. Just that conflict of interest when you're dealing with the same entity that you are the head of, that becomes now problematic because there would be a direct, because if she's the mayor and her company is maybe doing catering for the same municipality that she's the mayor for, then one can see immediately there might be a conflict. But if she's the mayor in Polokwane and for some odd reason her company is involved in Mossel Bay with desalination of water and she's tendering there and following the right tender procedures, then one cannot hold any person at fault to say that, although I'm there, but, and also one needs to check, does this work outside of your a public office interfere with your work as a public servant? If no, then obviously one would not say there's a conflict, but also you need to speak to your line manager. Your line manager needs to know as to, I have this business, I'm running my business, but I'm doing my job. So the mayor will have to go to the council will have to give her the green light to say that we will give you time from time to time in our working day that you can actually attend to your business. If not, then there is also maybe a conflict that's there. And with a coffee shop, you need hands-on approach type of situation.
Now, if they are permitted to have businesses, as you've rightfully indicated, our own president, of course, we know, is a business person, what regulations and disclosures are in place to prevent conflicts of interest and to ensure transparency?
Now, internally, in any government department, starting from local level up to national level, there is certain disclosures that you have to make to say that, are you doing business with government? What other business interests are you holding? So you need to disclose it, and then they will check if there is a conflict between the work that you do as a public servant and the work that you do as a business person. So there is that it closes. I know that it exists, and the government departments, the HR people that's responsible for actually now doing the final contracts and employing a person in his or her capacity as a government official, they do that vetting and checks. Obviously, following up, whether you are doing business now later on after you've assumed the position with the entity that you are the head of, or that you sit in a position of influence, that's normally where the problem starts occurring. And I think that continuous check should be there, because they check at the beginning when you start, but I think in between, when you are in the position, you assume the role, they don't necessarily do their thorough checks anymore.
All right. Now, Minister Thembi Simelane appeared before the parliamentary committee and claimed that she had no knowledge of the Hawks' raid. I mean, how true could this be? I mean, wouldn't she, as a Minister of Justice, be informed or have an inkling about this?
I'm sure she should have had information, because eventually the Hawks, they sort of fall in her portfolio, if one can be justice and constitutional development. So she should have had something about it. But if she did not know, then it's also, for me, it's good that you don't know, because you don't want the process of investigation be influenced politically or otherwise by anybody, so that we can say we get a fair investigation to make sure that we dig and we find the real facts, and so we get to the bottom of the story. But for me, for her position that she holds, which is a senior position, I think she ought to have known.
All right. The minister also claimed that she paid back the money, but she can't produce any evidence or records of the repayment. What do you say about this?
Then for me, that's as dodgy as it comes. Because if I say I paid Masichaba back the money, then I should be able to show that here's money going from my bank account to Masichaba's bank account. You can't be saying 276, I think it was roughly around there, 276. You don't carry that in your briefcase and go and give it to somebody in cash. No, not in South Africa. So you should have had a proof that I took the money out of my bank account. Even if you take it out of cash, there must be a withdrawal at least. To say, here's the amount that I withdrew and I paid it. But to just carry around such a lot of money and pay it direct to the person, it's unheard of in this day. You'd have an EFT or an electronic payment method of payment and send it to the person. But if you can't produce, then it means that that money was never returned.
Do you think that the minister should step down?
At this point in time, obviously, there is now, I think, her reputation, and also she is sort of half conflicted where she's currently at. And I would think that the president should either remove her from the portfolio as the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, so that we don't have the shenanigans around our ministers and stuff like that. And she should have, and not wait for her to be formally charged, like the ANC has the step aside rule. Once you have been charged criminally, that you should step aside. I think ministers should have high moral ground and actually show to the public that we are accountable to you guys that elected us. And if there is something like this, I would step down to clear my name, or I would step aside to clear my name and make sure that I bring up and I cooperate with the investigation.
Are there any legal or constitutional requirements that the president must follow in addressing Minister Simelane's involvement in the VBS scandal?
Obviously, we heard the SG of the ANC said they took her to the ethics committee. They've had discussions with her and they're going to make recommendations. We know how the ANC operates. It's like the NSC discuss it and then they take it to the cabinet ministers that's attached to the ANC, and that's how they normally take decisions. So they've said they've discussed it and they've made recommendations to the NEC and also to the president. So then obviously based on that, they will now look at the situation, and obviously there is a little bit cloud hanging for me there. And I would think that the president, not having the regulations, but they've got the internal rules and regulations within the ANC that he stems from, and then in cabinet, he has the prerogative to actually reshuffle his cabinet. That's a presidential power that comes from the Constitution. So he can say, okay, I'm going to remove you and put you in a different portfolio, or to say, I can just remove you and take in another Minister of Justice. That can also be done. The president has that power. He doesn't need to consult any other minister in cabinet to say, I'm going to do this. But I know he's going to consult most probably the ANC's NEC, because the minister is deployed from the ANC.
And so, therefore, Elton, can the president's handling of this situation impact his own political standing and public trust?
Obviously, people will look at the president now with hawk's eyes to say that, yeah, you've got an implicated minister and you have this government of national unity that you call to say that you want to root out, and that is the buzzword, we want to root out corruption within government. And if the president's going to sit idle and say, I'm not going to do anything about it, then the broader public will say, but you speak one thing, Mr. President, but when it comes to action, you do another. And I would think if the president wants to really get the confidence of the country, he should most probably either move the minister to a different portfolio or actually just recall and put another minister there on the portfolio and leave it like that. I think that would be the better option for the president.
Now, the minister told the parliament that she'd sent a report to the president about this issue. For transparency, will the president's response be made public?
I don't think the president's response will be made public, because the president also has that prerogative. He can sit there in his office as a president and he can look at his ministers, look at the report, and then maybe consult his advisors, because he has legal advisors also sitting around him, consult them and think what is best for the GNU at this point in time. Because I know the DA might push and say, listen, you've got an implicated minister here. Why are you still holding on to the minister? So he has to now juggle and balance this thing, because you want to keep the GNU stable, but you also want to keep your party who's deployed you also happy. So now it's a juggling act that the president has to follow. And here he has to sit there and now make that decision and see what is in the best interest of the country and how best can I handle this without causing any further damage or harm, reputational damage, to say that we as the GNU are rooting out corruption. I as the president stand firm by my word.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for your time, Elton.
Always a pleasure.
Elton Hart is a legal expert and attorney at the University of Johannesburg.